Dancing plants, the ingenious ways plants move. Plants may not walk or run, but their movements are remarkable. The dancing, twining sweet pea shoots climbing up a trellis, the sunflower following the sun, and the quick snapshot of the Venus flytrap on its meal are all examples of various mechanisms plants have developed to move. But if plants have no muscles, skeleton, and nervous system, how do they move? Well, there are two broad categories of plant movements. Firstly, tropic movements or tropisms. This is directional growth, or turning towards or away from a stimulus. And secondly, nastic movements. These are movements that are not dependent on the direction of the stimulus. They are often reversible and can happen quite quickly. So, firstly, tropisms. These are growth responses where the plant turns or grows towards or away from a directional stimulus. Some common tropisms include phototropism. Shoots grow towards light, such as your pot plants on the windowsill that you have to continually turn so that they don't grow lopsided. Heliotropism. Sunflowers and other flowers and leaves track the sun from east to west to ensure maximum sun exposure during a crucial period of growth. And gravitropism or geotropism. Roots grow down in response to gravity, positive gravitropism, and shoots grow up away from gravity, negative gravitropism. And thigmotropism. This is a response to touch or contact. Tendrils of climbing plants twine around supports when they touch them. And thermotropism. Plants respond to temperature. For example, rhododendron leaves curl downwards in extremely cold weather. This is thought to prevent water loss through the stomata on the undersides of the leaves. And hydrotropism. Roots grow downwards towards moisture in the deeper soil layers. And chemotropism. Plants grow in response to chemicals, such as pollen tubes growing towards ovules guided by chemical signals. But how exactly do these tropisms work? Light, for example, is detected by photoreceptors, such as phototropins for blue light and phytochromes for red light in plant shoot tips. The light stimulus triggers the release of the plant hormone auxin, which makes cells grow. If the light is shining on one side of the shoot, the auxin is sent down the other side of the shoot. It makes the cells on the shady side grow longer, so that the tip of the shoot points back towards the light. Gravitropism, growing towards or away from gravity, also relies on the hormone auxin. And the mechanism is brilliant. Cells in the roots and shoot tips contain little packages of starch called statoliths. The starch is dense, so the statoliths always settle on the downward side of the cell. The position of the statoliths determine where auxin is released, and thus in what direction the growth occurs. If you tip the plant on its side, the statoliths settle on the side of the cells closest to the ground. Auxin is released to that side in shoots, and that is where the cells elongate, causing the shoot to grow upwards. For roots, the cells on the top side elongate and the root turns downwards. How smart is that? Thigmotropism, as displayed in climbing plants with tendrils, is still not fully understood. The hormone auxin plays a role, but various plants display different mechanisms of touch identification and tendril twirling mechanisms. The plants are able to identify touch, move towards it, and then grow around it in a complex sequence of both nastic and tropic movements. So how do the quicker nastic movements work? Well, let's look at the example of the Venus flytrap, Dionea muscipula. The surface of the Venus flytrap's modified leaves are covered in fine hair-like structures. When a hair is touched 2 or more times in a short time period, typically 35 seconds, the flytrap snaps shut in about 300 milliseconds. So how does this happen? The snapping shut is due to a complex interaction of elasticity and turgor. Turgor is the rigidity of cells and tissues, usually due to the absorption of liquid. When a hair bends, it pushes on the thin-walled cells at its base, increasing the pressure inside them. The increased pressure is converted to an action potential using mainly calcium ions. This potential propagates across the leaf lobes and stimulates cells in the lobes and midribs between them. Osmosis and the movement of water between regions of high concentrations of ions to lower concentration regions helps to activate the lobe and midrib cells. In the open, untriggered state, the lobes of the flytrap are convex outwards. This rapidly flips to a concave state when it snaps shut, in a process called snapbuckling. Interestingly, flytraps show an example of memory in plants. The plant knows if one of its trigger hairs has been touched and remembers this for a few seconds. If a second touch occurs during that time frame, the flytrap closes. Another plant traps its prey even faster than a flytrap. Underwater bladderworts from the genus Utricularia have stalks studded with sac-shaped traps. When prey, such as mosquito larvae, triggers the hairs on the trap's lid, it opens. Water is sucked in, pulling the prey with it, and the trap lid shuts, all in 1/1000th of a second. Other plants move lightning fast to blast their seeds, spores, or pollen into the air. The bunchberry dogwood, for example. Its flowers have 4 white bracts surrounding a number of inconspicuous true flowers in the center. Each of these true flowers have 4 petals fused together. They hold down 4 bent, arm-like pollen-holding stamens that protrude from the petals. When disturbed, such as by a bumblebee, the petals split apart. The stamens then flip outward, accelerating at a g-force of 2,400. That is, 2,400 times the gravity of the Earth. For comparison, fighter pilots will pass out at a g-force exceeding 9. As the stamens flip outwards, the pollen sac on each gets flung out in bursts. Pollen covers the insect that disturbed it, almost in retribution. It is also flung out into its surroundings. The delicate closing of leaves of the touch-me-not, Mimosa pudica, when touched is a little slower, as is the movement of flowers and leaves tracking the sun, for example in gazanias and sunflowers. The driver for these movements is a tiny organ called the pulvinus that sits at the base of leaves and stems that fold. To understand how the pulvinus can move, let's first explore the movement of ions in plants. Potassium ions move in and out of cells, resulting in wilting and swelling. Water follows the ions, swelling cells with higher concentrations of potassium ions, and dehydrating cells that have a lower potassium ion concentration. It's this combination of wilting and swelling in different parts of the plant that act as levers and create movement. So back to the pulvinus at the base of leaves and stems. The pulvinus is surrounded by thin-walled motor cells which can quickly expand and shrink as water rushes in or out with changing potassium ion concentration. In plants that follow the sun, light and temperature sensors control the movement of potassium ions that drive the leaves. And in plants responding to touch, like the mimosa, pimple-like sensors poking out of the cell walls are the activation points in getting the water moving. Climbing plants, such as lianas and peas, have a similar pimply effect for their touch sensors. These plants grow with their tendrils slowly swinging like lassos in search of support. Once they hit something, the pimples get a push and that signal starts cells lengthening on the outside, probably with the involvement of the growth hormone auxin. So it's more hormones, hairs and hydraulics than nerves, muscles and bones, but plants have ingenious ways of sensing and moving. So ingenious, in fact, that some of these methods are being used as inspiration for materials-based sensing and actuation in soft robots and machines. Even the slower tropic movements of plants provide lessons in adaptive motion. This adaptive motion is the ability of a robot to adjust its movements or control strategy in real time to cope with changing environments. So how amazing are plants? This particular topic is a rabbit hole you can get lost in pretty quickly. So I'll leave some links in the description below in case you want to venture down a hole or two. Well, that's it for this video. If you want to know more about some weird and unusual trees, I'll leave a link to the video up here and down in the description. And if you found this video interesting, please like and subscribe. Until next time, enjoy.